Welcome to the Vision Room, a brand new podcast series from Vision Scotland. I'm your host, Heather Sutty, and in this series, we meet visionaries in their field, people whose work and experience have shaped the way they see the world. Today's guest is a very familiar face to many of you, a warm, colourful voice across style, homes and culture, with a sharp eye for creativity. She's the presenter of Scotland's Home of the Year, an interior designer, and someone who makes design feel accessible and easy to understand. Anna Campbell-Jones is also an entrepreneur and has built a strong following, making design feel clear and accessible. She's also a passionate advocate for sustainable living. Today, we'll talk about design, creativity, and how the way we see literally shapes how we live. Anna, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
Now, you have built a career based around having an amazing eye on design. When did that first materialise?
Oh, I think from a very young age, my mum was constantly having to keep me topped up with crafting supplies and paint and glue and things like that. I was just a busy bee making things all the time.
And in terms of your work with Scotland's Home of the Year, which you're most widely known as, how did that come to materialise? How did you land the gig?
Well, I mean, I didn't sort of land the gig. I wasn't fishing. I just got a phone call from a researcher at the production company asking me if I'd be interested. And I actually said that I wasn't. I was quite busy running a business and also lecturing at Glasgow School of Art, which I had been doing for nearly 20 years at that time. But they asked for a meeting, and so I went and had a chat with them anyway. And eventually, long story short, I was persuaded.
And you're a professional interior designer, and I know that you weren't particularly happy about the judging element. So how did your role come to evolve in Scotland's Home of the Year?
Well, yes, I mean, that was exactly my reservation. I think that people should be able to choose how their homes look and have them however they want. And the idea of a seasoned interior designer, especially one with a voice like mine, swanning into people's houses and telling them how they should have done it better. I just wasn't really keen at all. But they were interested in a discussion about a shift in emphasis in the show to celebrating what home means to people, as opposed to a design competition.
And what does home mean to you?
Oh, well, that's a massive question. A home is everything, isn't it? It's family, it's friends, it's sanctuary. It's also, and I think this is probably the most relevant in terms of what I do, it can be a very true and authentic expression of yourself, which is a big part of what makes home a sanctuary.
And how would you describe your own home now? Caveat, I have been to your home and it's amazing. But if you were to sum it up in terms of how you view and experience your own home, how would you describe it?
Well, it's interesting because I've been in my home for over 25 years and it's evolved so much over those years, as we do. And my home has definitely evolved with my life and the way that I look at life and the bumps in the road that I've experienced. So it's gone from being all white walls, very minimalist with one art piece in each room, to now kind of a cacophony of colour and a collection of objects and pieces of furniture, all of which means so much to me and tell the story, not just of me, but of my family.
You have 2 young sons?
Well, not so young now. They're in their mid-20s.
They've both flown the coop, though.
They have, yes.
And in terms of how your home has evolved since your sons have left, tell us about the changes.
Well, they very much see my home still as their home. They've always been very resistant to me making changes, even though they now both have their own homes and are very happily settled in them. I suppose the sort of adjustments that they would notice would be the addition of a disco ball and a smoke machine in my living room, because I definitely have more parties now that I don't have the kids living at home.
And in terms of sustainable living, I know that's a big thing for you. I know you love sustainable fashion, but also you have been known to find pieces of furniture in skips, in charity shops, at local markets. What attracts you to sustainable living?
Well, sustainable living, it works for me on a number of levels. Obviously, we are all anxious about the climate emergency, and any little thing that we can do to even just feel like we're helping, I think feel like it helps to quell that anxiety. But actually also I find that objects that have got a past life are more interesting, that they've got a story. Even if you don't know what the story is, you know that there is one there. And that to me brings more depth.
And in terms of your entrepreneurial side of sustainable living, tell us about how that has influenced your business and how you operate.
Yes, well, a few years ago, I was looking around at other brands and trying to specify for clients from companies that were operating sustainably and manufacturing in the UK. And there are some amazing companies out there, but not as many as you would like. And I struck on the slightly absurd notion, I suppose, of starting a brand myself. And I set very strict rules for myself that would be plastic free, that it would be all manufactured in Scotland. And if I couldn't find somebody in Scotland in the short term to do it, the UK, all the materials would be natural. All the designs would be original. So no reselling other people's stuff. So that I have complete control. And that's been a really enjoyable process. And the inspiration behind that brand has also been looking back in history, looking at the stories behind Dazzle camouflage, which are now like 100 years old and still look so contemporary. So I revisited that and gave that a fresh look. And interestingly, the concept of Dazzle camouflage is all about visibility and invisibility, which ties in quite well to our conversation today.
Indeed. And one of the other projects that you're involved in is Lucky Swallows, which I love. So tell us about Lucky Swallows.
Well, yes. So then I tell you that my brand is plastic free. And then I have to admit that the most successful product that we sell is actually made of plastic. And that is as a result of a collaboration with Ocean Kitchen Scotland. Ali, the director there, approached me at a climate conference where I was the keynote. And he said that he thought that we should do something together. And he initially suggested flying ducks. And I was kind of appalled. And then
like
I was sort of looked down. Yes, I know. But I mean, I have nothing against flying ducks. I think they're amazing. But I didn't want to reproduce something that may be so recognizable. And I didn't really feel like I love ducks. I didn't feel like I had a personal connection to them. And I looked down at my own hands, which have got swallows tattooed on them. And I remembered a little wall ornament that I bought in a jumble sale when I was still a teenager. I mean, I was thrifting from a very young age, a swallow that's been on the wall of every home I've ever lived in. And that's where we took our inspiration. And we just did it as a project, really, more than a product at first. But they've absolutely, if you'll forgive the pun, taken off. So we've set up a separate website for them and a separate business, luckyswallows.com. So
why swallows? Like, you have those tattoos on your hand. What do swallows mean to you? Like, what is, when you see them, how does that make you feel?
Well, the first tattoo I got wasn't the ones on my hand. It's on my arm, which is a swallow. And I got that at that time because to me, it signified loyalty and resilience. These tiny little birds that travel so far and always return home to their nest with their same partner every year. And something about that pluckiness and steadfastness really appealed to me. And actually that was why it was a really good idea for the product as well, because I haven't mentioned that the plastic that we use for the Lucky Swallows is actually ocean plastic. So the idea of bringing something from the sea back to the shore, it kind of fit the symbolism.
And in terms of your own experience of, aging, if you like, would it be fair to say that your life changed completely when you hit your 50s?
Absolutely, yes. So that phone call from the researcher, I was 49. We filmed the first series of Shotty when I was 49, but it broadcast just after I turned to 50. And I have to say, my 50s has been my most favourite decade yet.
And what is it about being in your 50s that you've loved the most? I mean, I've known you for a long time. Your style has evolved quite dramatically. What brought on that change?
Are we allowed to swear?
Yes.
I would describe my 50s, and I think I've heard this from a lot of the women that are in my online community on Instagram and Facebook and so on, is that your 50s is the era of not giving a fuck, which is not the same as not caring, because we obviously passionately care about our friends and our children and our families. And, the environment and whatever issues we care about passionately, but also just a feeling that like life's too short. I don't know why I was so worried about what people thought of me before, but one unexpected gift from doing the TV show where I really didn't know how I was going to be perceived was how nice everybody has been about me and to me. I thought I might be a bit Marmite, and I dare say I am, but the feedback that I get on my socials and in the street and the supermarket is always joyous. And that has given me so much confidence. And as you say, my personal style has evolved. I just keep on pushing it. I mean, when it comes to wearing glasses, I first needed glasses in my mid-40s, and I went for a fairly conservative vintage pair, actually. And then I talk about like spectacle dysmorphia. So every time I go to get a new pair of specs, they're slightly bigger, slightly crazier, or a slightly more unusual color. So at some point, they're going to take over my entire face if they haven't already. And I think the kind of same applies to my sense of fashion. Like, do things really have to match? Does it really matter if something's got a hole in it? If I love it, who cares about trends? Like, do I like it? That kind of thing.
And in terms of your own vision, you mentioned that you've been wearing glasses since your mid-40s. Have you ever thought about vision correction?
No. I've never minded the idea of wearing glasses. I see it as another opportunity to make a design decision, to make a style choice. And I think that's a little bit like my ethos in life, really. The cliche about, making lemonade if you've got lemons. But I think it's always been my approach to, as a designer, whether designing products or interiors, is that actually a problem or a hitch or a limitation is a spur to inspiration.
It's an opportunity.
Yes.
And that is so liberating. And one of the things that I love about you is that you are the queen of colour.
I am quite obsessed with colour. I mean, I go back to like my home as an expression. When I say that all the walls were white, 25 years ago, I'm not exaggerating. And I needed to take a photograph for some kind of ID, and it said, stand against a white wall. I didn't have any. Like, my whole home is painted in every single colour, and I am completely obsessed with colour, to the point where I go down rabbit holes of colour history and so on. Yes, and expressing that in my clothes and my makeup and my hair. All of it. Bring it on.
So when you walk into one of your clients' homes and you're doing an interior design project, how do you see what they experience? Because I'd imagine your lens view of what they experience is very different from their own. So how do you approach that?
I think it's absolutely fascinating to go into anyone's home. And I suppose that's what the show is all about. And yes, it's what my job, my day job, if you like, is all about. I don't think people necessarily are aware of how much their homes tell people about them, because to them, their home is the only way it can be, because it comes from them. A big part of what I do as an interior designer is to try and get inside the heads of my clients to try and design as if I was them. I'm not really interested in imposing my design tastes on other people. And so finding a way into my client's aesthetic is always the first challenge. And sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's really, really hard. I mean, with one particular client, I asked her I always noticed she had amazing shoes. So I asked her to show me her shoe collection and talk to me about the stories behind her favorite pairs. And I learned so much about her sensibilities, the kind of colors and textures and shapes that excited her. And the project went much better after that.
And in terms of functionality, I think lots of people, myself included, because I'd love to have you come round and redesign my home.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I have lots of trinkets of lots of different experiences of times in my life. But homes sometimes are perceived as being functional, aren't they? Rather than being a story of someone's life.
Yeah, I mean, making a home functional is like, that's your absolute like basic level. I mean, there's no excuse for a home not to be functional unless for some perverse reason you have a client that actually wants something to be a little bit awkward because that's more exciting to them. Creating a functional home isn't always easy when you're working with an old building, or if you're trying to fit a little bit more in than the building might like. But yeah, I mean, that's the absolute foundation. That's your first, well, I say it's the first level. It's a given that anything that you do has to be functional, and it's running in tandem with the more whimsical, creative stuff, and the two can feed each other.
I have a massive fridge at home covered in fridge magnets of every city I've ever been in. Do you have anything similar that represents particular journeys or experiences that you've been on throughout your life? Or is your entire home a kind of visual storyboard of your life?
Yes, I think that's the second. Yes, I was trying to think if I've got one place. I'm not as controlled as you. No, it's absolutely everywhere. Just spin me round and I'll point at something and there'll be a 45-minute story about it.
Love it. And in terms of Scotland's Home of the Year, tell us where you're at with filming just now.
Well, this is the bit that always confuses people, because we have a series coming out very, very soon. And then we start filming around about the same time for the series that will come out in a year's time. So people get very confused about like my hair color or something, because it seems to keep flip-flopping and changing. So listeners, I'm ginger at the moment, but the new series coming out in a couple of weeks, I will be blonde. So yeah, exciting. It's really exciting. It's great fun. The three of us go on the road. We travel the length and breadth. I don't yet know where we're going. Sometimes it's a surprise even up until the day before. Really looking forward to it.
And in terms of the other projects that you're working on, because I mentioned earlier, you're an entrepreneur. Tell us what you spend the rest of your time doing when you're not working on Scotland's Home of the Year or Lucky Swallows.
Yeah. Yes, a lot of things. I always describe myself as a collaborative designer, that I think being an interior designer and helping people with their homes or their workplaces is and should be a collaborative process. And I've extended that into the development of my baby brand. I have collaborated with Jacobite Distilleries, which is a Glasgow-based company, and created a small batch Glasgow distilled white rum in my own name, which is extremely exciting. And I love the idea of, I love everything maritime. So, when John from that company spoke to me and said, what would you want to do? And I was like, well, it has to be a rum. and it has to be a white rum. So that's been an adventure, and working with his people on the flavor profile and thinking about what my brand might taste like is a really, really exciting adventure. I mean, I've collaborated with so many people to create things that I wouldn't have been able to create by myself, and I find that very exciting. I've got jewelry with Dower and Hall, who are a sustainable jewelry brand based in London, but their only shop is in Glasgow. And with No Rules wallpaper, that has been the most fun. We've created, I think it's about 5 patterns so far, in various colours, dazzle camouflage, and also most recently, which has been amazing fun, creating a pattern that reimagines the old Glasgow subway interior, which I helped design back in the early 90s when I was a junior designer.
Amazing. I remember being at the National Maritime Museum and I saw the camouflage print and I immediately thought of you. What was it about that drew you to that particular design? Like, what struck a chord?
Well, if you'd be careful starting me off on a story about dazzle camouflage, because I could do a whole hour just on that. But I've always been really interested in it. It's about the way that you might hide something in plain sight by decorating it with crazy geometric, abstract shapes and colors. And then when I dug into it a bit more and found out about Norman Wilkinson, who was a young naval artist who joined the Navy at the outset of the First World War, that troop ships and goods ships were being torpedoed, that he suggested decorating them with these stripes because there had been this research about zebras and why zebra stripes work. And unbelievably, they listened to him. So incredibly, the Navy agreed with him and they let him go off to the Royal Academy, do lots of watercolors, get the women of the Royal Academy to help him paint little models of ships and test them with periscopes. And they applied these patterns to every single ship in the fleet. He was then sent over deep undercover, like a spy, to the States to do the same thing for the US Navy, where they called it razzle dazzle because they felt that dazzle wasn't enough. And one of the ships that was given the dazzle camouflage was the Olympic, sister ship of the Titanic. She's the only civilian vessel to ever sink a ship. She sank a U-boat. But before she was stripped out and painted with the dazzle camouflage, one of the things that was rescued from the interior was a seascape painting that had been painted by Norman Wilkinson. And I kind of think that's just the most amazing story.
It is. And it's also related to the design of your rum, isn't it? Because it's on the bottle.
Well, the dazzle camouflage is on the rum. Yes, absolutely. Well, it makes sense, doesn't it?
What's next for Anna Campbell-Jones?
I don't know. Lots, I hope. Bring it on. I'm just getting started.
Anna Campbell-Jones, thank you so much for joining us on the Vision Room podcast.
Thanks for having me.